Michael Hastings was a very talented 33-year-old truth-telling journalist that is best known for his groundbreaking Rolling Stone interview with NATO Commander General McChrystal that ended his career. Last week, this brilliant young journalist died mysteriously in a one-car accident that had his Mercedes crash into a ball of flames. It is now being reported that he did contact WikiLeaks lawyers just hours before his death, and that he sent an email to his close friends that he was, quote, on a big story, that the feds were after him, and he needed to get off the grid for a bit. This immediately reminded me of the untimely death of Andrew Breitbart, that was threatening to release videos that he said would ruin Obama's chance at re-election.
I've got videos. This election, we're going to vet him from his college days to show you why racial division and class warfare are central to what Hope and Change was sold in 2008.
When his death was ruled of natural causes, it was then reported that Andrew Breitbart's coroner, Michael Kormer, was poisoned to death. These are just recent examples of those that spoke truth to the debt and death paradigm that paid the ultimate price so that we can become free. Through my studies of understanding power, I have run across more than a few questionable deaths, and the official story just doesn't line up with the reality of what happened. I want you to watch this clip from the movie Michael Clayton, starring George Clooney, on how a murder can be used to silence opposition and make it look like a natural cause.
Ready? And lift. Ready? And go. Wipe. You better hit it.
If you think that this is just Hollywood fiction, here's congressional testimony featuring Barry Goldwater and a CIA whistleblower about how the CIA has a gun that can make people look like they're having a heart attack and leave nothing behind but a small red prick that would be easily missed on any autopsy.
To find out if there was such a thing as a poison that was undetectable, especially one that seemed to mimic a heart attack, that would kill someone, but it would appear that they had a heart attack. I did find such a thing.
Does this pistol fire the dart?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chairman, and a special one was developed which potentially would be able to enter the target without perception.
The poison was frozen into some sort of dart, and then it was shot at very high speed into the person, so when it reached the person it would melt inside them, and the only thing would be like one little tiny red dot on their body, which was hard to detect. There wouldn't be a needle left or anything like that in the person.
But also the toxin itself would not appear in the autopsy?
Yes, so that there was no way of perceiving that the target was him.
I planned on covering this subject in The Greatest Truth Never Told, Module 2, Anger, because when people see how the world really works, they will become angry, and this topic will definitely get your blood boiling. There are many other people who have died of quote-unquote natural causes. Men like Bill Hicks died of pancreatic cancer at 32 years old. Bob Marley died of melanoma at 36 years old. Aaron Russo, creator of Freedom to Fascism, died at 64 years old a year after he released that video. Matt Simmons, who wrote Twilight in the Desert, who spoke about Saudi Arabia lying about how much oil they had, died in his hot tub. Ken Lang, who's involved with the Enron scandal, died of a heart attack in jail. Sean Horay, who exposed the phone hacking scandal of Rupert Murdoch's media empire, mysteriously died of natural causes. These natural causes are just one way of quelling opposition or people who might expose the truth. The most famous way is through the good old-fashioned assassination. Most famously was JFK, who was anti-war and anti-banker as he sought to end the Vietnam War and through Executive Order 11110 reestablish honest money in a fiat world. Mahatma Gandhi brought down the British Empire in India through nonviolent, non-compliant civil disobedience. He was assassinated. Another peace lover, Martin Luther King, his nonviolent civil disobedience led to a rifle assassination.
A long life, longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
John Lennon was very influential in the anti-war movement. Robert F. Kennedy was also anti-war, and as soon as it became clear that he was going to be the presidential candidate, he was assassinated. This was in a long line of other assassinations like Huey Long that was opposed to federal power and thought that power should belong to the people, every man a king. Benazir Bhutto in Pakistan posed a challenge to the pro-American Pakistan government. Yitzhak Rabin, who sought to make peace with the Palestinians, was assassinated. Anwar Sadat, who also sought to create peace between Israel and the Arabs. You had Prime Minister Percival of England, who was anti-war. President James Garfield, who was quoted as saying, "Whoever controls the volume of money in a country is absolute master of all industry and commerce." He was assassinated. Abraham Lincoln, who introduced debt-free money called the greenback, was assassinated. Another anti-banker president, Andrew Jackson, had a failed assassination attempt on him, as he put an end to the equivalent of the Federal Reserve during his time. Another failed assassination attempt was Ronald Reagan, with CIA chief George Bush as his vice president. When you look how Reagan's policy changed from small government and the return of the gold standard, and after his assassination, you see that the message was very clear. Even poor Gerald Ford suffered 2 assassination attempts. I mean, who would want to kill him? When you see Vice President Agnew resigning and pleading no contest to criminal charges of tax evasion and money laundering, Gerald Ford became vice president to Richard Nixon. Then Richard Nixon steps down with the Watergate scandal. Then Nelson Rockefeller is brought in as Gerald Ford's vice president. So we were 2 bullets away from having a Rockefeller as a president, unelected. But it doesn't stop there. On top of the natural causes and the actual assassinations, then there's the accidents. Accidents like General Patton dying in a car accident after surviving World War II, one of the strongest and most patriotic men that saw through the power in Washington supporting the communist effort. Men like JFK Jr., whose charismatic and intellectual approach to the world suddenly died in an airplane crash, only to be followed by Hillary Clinton taking the Senate seat that he was going to run for. Another Hillary Clinton friend, Ron Brown, dies in an airplane accident. Just like Michael McConnell, the computer genius who is considered to have hacked the 2000 and 2004 elections for Karl Rove, died in an airplane accident. Or how about the outspoken congressman who was the second president of the John Birch Society, Larry McDonald, who was also a cousin of George Patton. He was on Korean Airlines Flight 007 that was shot down by Soviet interceptors in 1983.
You have people who are part of the elitist structure of this country that have dominated this country openly for 40 years.
I know, but they're not. Is that a conspiracy?
Now, wait a minute. If people quietly working together for evil objectives, 2 or more, that by definition is a conspiracy. You have, by their own admission, you look at The Tragedy and Hope by Professor Carroll Quigley, who's a member of this elitist group. He says, sure, we've been working this. Sure, we've been collaborating with communism. Yes, we're working for a global accommodation. Yes, we're working for world government. The only thing I object to is that we have kept it a secret.
Another airplane accident was Senator Paul Wellstone, one of the most outspoken senators against the Iraq War. Another accident could be Princess Diana. The fact that she was carrying on relations with an Arab billionaire brought shame to the British monarchy. Even football and Ranger hero Pat Tillman died of friendly fire. It was claimed that when he was done with his service, that he would expose the truth about the war. And it doesn't stop there. There's another sort of assassination that's just as effective as pulling the trigger. There's the political assassination, like that of Eliot Spitzer. Or how about former Goldman Sachs Senator Jack Ryan, former husband of actress Jeri Ryan, who had a well-timed sex scandal prior to his 2004 re-election. Because Jack Ryan was a shoo-in, there was no other Republican candidates ready to fill the challenge, and this ultimately led to Barack Obama becoming senator, and we all know what happened after that. After Barack Obama left that Senate seat to become president, Rod Blagojevich also suffered scandal when he threatened to expose some misdealings with Barack Obama and Bank of America. Another challenge to power might have been John Edwards with his sex scandal, or maybe he was just stupid. Lou Dobbs is a very curious case. After being one of the most outspoken critics on NAFTA and bringing real news to the forefront, Lou Dobbs' house was shot at, and ultimately his show ended within a very strange period of time. Even true American patriots like Lucky Lindbergh, whose father, an outspoken critic of the Federal Reserve, had his child kidnapped and ultimately murdered. Even Douglas MacArthur, one of the most prominent generals, had his career cut short by Harry Truman. But that is not the worst fate a person can suffer. Murder to make it look like suicide is called suicided. That's when somebody's death is carried out to make it look like it was a suicide. Investigative journalist Gary Webb, who is at the forefront of exposing very dark secrets of the government, was found dead with 2 bullet shots to the back of his head and was ruled a suicide. A distant relative of mine, Secretary of Defense James Forrestal, was abruptly removed from office on March 28, 1949, then almost immediately after put into a psychiatric ward against his will, and then 7 weeks later supposedly jumped out of the Bethesda Naval Hospital. James Forrestal was an independently wealthy patriot who fought against the collectivist actions of the Truman administration and publicly stated that he was going to expose this threat to the American Constitution. Dr. Bruce Ivins was suicided so that the government could falsely end the anthrax investigation. Or how about weapons expert David Kelly, who started questioning the weapons of mass destruction that led us into war with Iraq? He was found in a park by his house, full of painkillers, and had his wrist slashed. Or how about peace activist Riyad Hamad, who was found with his hands and face duct taped, and it was ruled a suicide. Another friend of the Clintons that was found dead is Vince Foster, who had intimate knowledge of the Clintons' dealings in Arkansas. Even the military is not immune to this. Colonel Ted Westhuizen and General Tinsley both met suspicious deaths. Probably one of the most famous suicided is Madame Palfrey and Brandy Britton, both involved in a Washington sex scandal, and both were suicided. Plus, there's also a lot of lower-end people that you probably never heard of, like scientists and microbiologists and free energy advocates, just disappear or go away. The point of this video is that when people like Michael Hastings die in a mysterious car crash, that they should question the perceived reality, accepting the official story. The most important lesson is that men can be killed, but ideas cannot. And if one of us should fall, it should encourage more people to champion those ideas that their heroes died for.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud. And it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account. And my family. This has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever. In peace. Thank you very much. You've been great. I hope you enjoyed.